This video is brought to you by Ground News. On Tuesday, the UK published its latest employment data, and things don't look great. According to the ONS, the UK economy shed over 100,000 jobs in April alone, by far the most in recent history, and the overall unemployment rate ticked up to 4.6%, the highest level in nearly a decade if we exclude the pandemic. So in this video, we're going to look at the UK's emerging unemployment crisis, what's causing it, and why it presents the Bank of England with a difficult dilemma. Never miss an episode and always feel in the loop by subscribing and ringing the bell. So let's just start by looking at the data. According to provisional data from the Office for National Statistics released on Tuesday morning, in May, the number of employees on payroll tumbled by more than 100,000, the steepest decline in at least a decade, excluding the pandemic, and way worse than the 20,000 or so forecast by analysts. This is pretty terrible news for Chancellor Rachel Reeves, and the UK economy has now lost a total of 276,000 jobs since Reeves' first budget in October. ONS survey data, released at the same time, found that, presumably as a consequence of this contraction, there are now roughly 1.7 million people out of work, which takes the UK's overall unemployment rate up to 4.6%, its highest level since 2017, excluding the pandemic. This might not sound bad, but in lots of ways the official unemployment rate understates the real scale of joblessness in the UK. This is because the official unemployment data only counts those people who are looking for, but failing to find, work, and thus ignores the millions more people who are economically inactive. In other words, who are not looking for work. In any country, there are always going to be some people who are economically inactive, simply by virtue of their age, i.e. pensioners and children. However, the UK has seen a remarkably steep increase in the number of working-age adults claiming to be economically inactive, largely because more people are claiming sickness benefits, meaning they're claiming to be too ill to work. From 2002 until the pandemic, the number of people claiming sickness benefits fell steadily to a low of 2.2 million in 2019. However, since the pandemic, this has been rapidly rising, reaching 3.2 million in 2024, with the Department for Work and Pensions estimating it will reach 3.8 million people by 2028. Quite a lot of this has been driven by young people, with a record 266,000 16 to 24-year-olds claiming some sort of long-term sickness benefit, and more people, again especially young people, claiming to have debilitating depression or anxiety-related disorders. While some of this increase is presumably the result of a genuine increase in long-term and chronic illnesses, especially long COVID, it's also worth noting that the UK has seen a far steeper increase in working-age benefit claims over the past couple of years than basically any other developed country. Anyway, you get the point. The UK's unemployment rate is up to a 4-year high, and this probably understates the true severity of the UK's joblessness crisis. So, what is going on, and where have all the jobs gone? Well, the main reason for this increase in unemployment is probably the recent increase in employers' national insurance contributions, which was announced by Reeves in October but only came into effect in April. This obviously makes hiring and paying employees more expensive, which will have discouraged employers from hiring new employees or even keeping old ones. At the same time, there's also been an increase in the minimum wage, with the minimum wage for over 21s going up by 6.7% to £12.21, and the minimum wage for 18 to 20-year-olds going up by 16.3% to £10. While there are good arguments for increasing the minimum wage, including that it should, in theory, encourage employers and employees to invest in boosting productivity, it could have put some short-term downwards pressure on employment. There's also some evidence that the job market for new graduates is slowing down, perhaps because AI is replacing entry-level graduate jobs in certain industries. According to the Institute of Student Employers, or ISE's latest annual student recruitment survey, job growth in the graduate market slowed from 6 to 4% between 2023 and 2024, and is expected to fall further to just 1% in the coming years. This is leading to more and more applications for the limited number of grad jobs. According to that same survey, on average, employers received a record 140 applications per graduate job posting, up from 88 last year. But more generally, the UK economy just isn't doing great at the moment. And when the economy is slow, you get fewer jobs being created and more people being fired. Obviously, this is all bad news for the government, not least because higher unemployment means a higher welfare bill and fewer taxes, putting yet more strain on the UK's public finances, which, as you might have noticed, aren't currently in great nick. But it also puts the Bank of England in a bit of a tough spot. Usually, the monetary remedy to rising unemployment is to cut interest rates, which should stimulate economic growth and create more jobs. However, the Bank of England will be reluctant to cut rates too fast or too soon because inflation is still pretty high, with the latest data putting it at 3.5%, and wage growth is still pretty strong. This might come as a surprise to some of our viewers, but UK wage growth has actually been pretty strong for the past couple of years. After peaking at about 7% year-on-year in 2023, it fell down to about 5% in 2024, where it's stayed since. The most recent data, for instance, suggests that wages grew at 5.2% year-on-year in the second quarter of 2025, down from 5.5% in the first quarter. This is above inflation, helping UK workers make up some of the real terms losses they suffered in 2022 and 2023, when inflation was running higher than wages. But it's also created a bit of a headache for the Bank of England. This is essentially because strong wage growth can stoke inflation. After all, higher wages means more spending power for workers and households, which in turn means higher inflation. Furthermore, these wage increases haven't been matched by equivalent increases in productivity, which means the workforce isn't actually producing more goods and services. This means you've got more demand thanks to increased purchasing power without an equivalent increase in supply, because we're not producing more stuff, putting further upwards pressure on inflation. For these reasons, the bank has said that, in order to get inflation to stabilise below or around its 2% target, wage growth would need to fall to 3% or lower. This presents the Bank of England with a difficult dilemma. Do they raise rates further to keep down inflation, but risk exacerbating the UK's emerging unemployment crisis, or do they cut rates to stimulate growth and create jobs, while hoping that global factors, like falling oil and food prices, bring down inflation anyway? If you want to know more about this topic, there's plenty of other outlets reporting about it online. Unfortunately though, it's sometimes hard to tell exactly which way these outlets lean politically, making it difficult to understand exactly how your view of world events is being biased by the sources you're reading. That's where this week's sponsor, Ground News, comes in. Their website and app, developed by a former NASA engineer, allows us to pull back the curtain on media bias and have a look at exactly how each story is being covered. For instance, this story about the rise in UK unemployment has been covered by more than 54 sources. We know more than 5 of these have been reported by the left, and 7 of these have been reported by the right. That's not all though. Ground News has tons of genuinely useful features. Take their blind spots feed, for instance. This shows you the stories underreported by one side of the political spectrum or the other. For example, if you lean left, you probably missed this story on the internal battle ahead of Labour's spending review. Here at TLDR News, we think that Ground News is an incredibly useful tool for our current media landscape, one that's constantly trying to attract your attention and sway you towards or away from certain political viewpoints. So having a tool that helps you spot this and helps you take action really is a game changer. If you're interested in everything Ground News has to offer, you can get 40% off the Unlimited Access Vantage Plan subscription by using the link in the description or scanning the QR code on screen. This limited time offer is only available here, so make sure you go to ground.news/TLDR or click the link in the description to get started and support an independent news platform working to make the media landscape more transparent.